Hi, everyone. Welcome to a very special episode of Frontiers, where we explore the latest trends in technology, innovation, corporate sustainability, and the financing that supports them. I'm Jake Gentry, Senior Director of Earth Finance's Renewable Fuels Practice and Executive Director of the Cascadia Sustainable Aviation Accelerator, a unique public-private partnership working to rapidly accelerate the transition to SAF across the Pacific Northwest. I'm thrilled to be joined by two other founding members of the Cascadia Coalition, Diana Birkett Rakow, CEO of Hawaiian Airlines, and Washington State Senator Marko Liias, both of whom are true industry luminaries and have delivered incredible results in their respective fields and the SAF transition more broadly. Today, we're going to be exploring how a systems-level approach like Cascadia can help catalyze commercial-scale production of SAF, why that's so important, and what it means for the future of SAF. Diana, Senator Liias, thanks so much for joining.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Fantastic. Well, let's dive straight in. Diana, you are the first U.S. airline CEO to come from a sustainability background. How does that shape how you're leading Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines through the SAF transition? And why is SAF so important to your work?
Well, I'm fortunate that in this role, while I'm supporting the team here on the Hawaiian Airlines brand and out in Hawaii, I get to continue the sustainability journey with responsibility for that work across our enterprise. And, I think the perspective that it brings is we started this journey with Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines so that we could compete, stay strong for the future, and continue to thrive while honoring two over 90-year-old legacies and two strong and beloved brands. And the theme there is durability, is really making sure that we are set up for a strong and durable future while honoring that past. And I think that idea of durability and resilience is really critical when we think about the future of creating alternative technologies for aviation, creating alternative fuel sources, meeting the needs of our guests who are asking for these alternatives in the future, and creating economic development in our communities by advancing new technologies, creating new industry and new jobs. So I think it's part and parcel with everything that we're doing in the business. And I'm excited for SAF to not only be part of our present in a smaller way, but to be part of our future in a bigger way.
Yeah, I mean, as a true sustainability leader, right, tying the environmental benefit to the economic benefit. Senator Liias, you've called the Cascadia region the one region with the research, industry, policy, and workforce needed to scale SAF. Why is your office so dedicated to advancing the SAF transition? And what makes this the defining moment for Washington?
Well, I have the great privilege of representing the heart of a global aerospace sector, the best workforce, and the most productive manufacturing facility in the world when it comes to creating aircraft that are used all over planet Earth. And so this is in our DNA. I represent thousands of Boeing machinists, thousands of aerospace engineers who live in my community and make my community so rich and so wonderful and so successful. So we get the importance of the global aerospace industry, aviation industry to jobs here locally, but we also sit, in a community that stares out at the mountains and at the Puget Sound. And we understand our deep connection to the land and the waters that make this part of the world so special. It's no accident that Washington State is one of the leading climate policies in the nation, if not in the world, with our Climate Commitment Act and our commitment to reducing emissions to meet those Paris targets that are so ambitious. So when you combine our legacy of aerospace and aviation and the jobs, the thousands of jobs, hundreds of thousands of jobs that brings with it, together with Washingtonians' kind of inborn commitment to our beautiful natural environment, to the future of this planet, that's where this sort of magic happens. We need to make sure that we have a healthy and strong aerospace industry for generations to come, continuing to create good jobs. That means finding ways to decarbonize this hard to decarbonize sector, and combining those two commitments together with, again, a world-leading research institution, Washington State University, that brings us know-how together. It's in our DNA, it's in our heritage, it's something we're deeply committed to, and we've got the right mix of people to really advance this. So it's kind of, in politics, you don't often come across no-brainer ideas. Usually somebody's opposed to whatever you're proposing. This is one of those ideas where everybody gets it. It's something that we've got to be a leader on. It's something that is so critical to the future of our economy, but also to the future of the planet's health. And we gotta win this.
You're spot on. We are one of the few regions in the world that have an aerospace OEM like Boeing and the climate policy like the CCAA, clean fuel standard. I mean, we really do have the foundation to go really big in this space. So really appreciate your leadership on that. Well, a question for both of you then. There are a lot of SAF efforts globally. What is the Cascadia Accelerator and the Cascadia Institute doing differently, and why does that matter? Let's start with you, Diana.
Sure. Well, first of all, it's such a privilege to have leadership like Senator Liias's in our state and really being kind of visionary about what this confluence of assets that we have and sort of where that can take us. And that kind of leadership is one of the things that actually I think makes this coalition and initiative different. Broadly speaking, I think what really makes a difference is that it's both cross-sector and it's structural. It's really looking at every piece of the puzzle. We need policy, we need infrastructure, we need new technologies. We need, as an airline, we need scope 3 partners, corporate traveler companies that are willing to help support the scale up of this industry. There have been so many people working on advancing SAF for decades, frankly. And we've got the pieces in place now. But if you're pushing something and you're pushing it just sort of one off from each side, it's not going to actually go as fast as if you're pushing it in a coordinated way from all sides. And I think that's what Cascadia has, in addition to the structural elements of looking at infrastructure and of actually building an R&D facility that can advance new technologies. So having that end-to-end approach with the depth is really what sets Cascadia apart.
Yeah, your comment about, I've been at this for decades. And I think last I checked at the end of 2025, we still hadn't reached 1% global jet fuel market penetration of SAF. So couldn't agree more. How about you, Senator Liias? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that we have private sector players like our amazing home-based airline, Alaska Hawaiian, we have academic partners, and we have folks in government, it does two things. First of all, we have multiple perspectives. The other part about the accelerator is it builds trust between these players so that when the private sector is expressing their needs, the public sector and academia can hear it and receive that message. When academia is talking about the constraints of the research or the public sector is talking about the constraints of our policy process, we've built an environment where we believe one another and we work together to overcome the problems that we're identifying, the challenges that we're identifying. And I think I'm just noticing more and more that public sector and private sector players in other areas kind of talk past one another. And we're creating a space where we can talk directly to one another and kind of grapple with the issues. I think Cascadia is also really honest and sober that the reason why SAF is not moving to scale faster is because there are real barriers. There are real pinch points in the supply chain, the value chain. And rather than pretending like those don't exist, we're instead kind of like a chiropractor, right? Leaning into those spots to kind of work out that kink. And I think being honest that there are barriers, being honest with one another about whether it's the public sector or the private sector that are contributing to those barriers, and then figuring out how we move them out of the way. That is unique. And I think it really lives up to the goal of a public-private partnership where we truly are trying to bring the best of each other to the table and really focus in on the actual barriers to moving this forward. We all know the goal has to be achieved. And so that's giving us the engagement, that's giving us the momentum to really get in there and kind of work out those kinks. And our goal is not, simple, 1 billion gallons. Like that's a big, audacious goal. And we're already seeing significant momentum towards achieving that.
And it's true. I mean, we're seeing it unfold real time with our academic and research partners working directly with industry on a day-to-day basis. So thank you for that. Diana, what does Cascadia give Alaska and Hawaiian that you couldn't get on your own? Even with the offtake partnerships with PAR Hawaii and your venture investments through Alaska Star Ventures, what does Cascadia bring you to the table?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what we were just talking about. We're building a whole industry and a whole market. And one offtake here or there is really critical to making some progress. But we need not just a couple of options or early stage technologies that we're able to draw from. We need that systemic approach that actually creates the new industry. And that's what will make us all successful long term.
Senator Liias, walk us through the policy stack you've helped build, from the SAF tax credit to the recent state appropriation behind Cascadia. What were you trying to de-risk for industry, and what's still missing from the toolkit?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, as you said, we've been working on this policy area for over a decade. And I have to acknowledge my colleague, Senator Andy Billig, who really helped lead some of this early work before he retired from the Senate. He sort of graciously passed the baton, although we've been working very closely on this for a number of years. I mean, our first step, of course, was to create financial incentives. And there is a really strong SAF tax credit here in the state of Washington focused on really bringing fuel to market here in our state to make a difference. But we also, I think, across time acknowledge that just tax incentives alone aren't enough to address the multitude of challenges that this space requires. And that's where, when the vision for Cascadia was born, it was really important to me that the state be a central partner in that, asking the private sector or academia to convene this table on their own just didn't seem realistic to me. And so we were able to get, a pretty significant kind of infusion of early support from the state government to help stand up the accelerator. What I'm most encouraged by is that the response from the private sector to take the baton and keep growing the accelerator is there, right? This is not something that needs to be government supported across time forever, but it really is that infusion of startup capital. And we're seeing the sort of market respond to and bring it together. I think the next piece that we're working on now, but we've got to build out, is the regulatory and environmental framework to make sure that as this vision to produce fuels in Washington materializes, that our state agencies and permitting agencies get those projects from the start of permitting to the end as quickly as possible. So our State Department of Ecology right now is working on how do we streamline some of that environmental work as these projects come forward. I think that's the next place where government can really be a player, is to de-risk the process of going from idea to the first shovel hitting the ground and shortening that time frame as quickly as possible. We also need to work with our private sector partners on, are there financing tools? Are there other mechanisms where the government can be a partner in that work? We also need, candidly, better partnerships at the federal level. And I think we've got a strong federal delegation from Cascadia that really cares about leaning in, whether it's Senator Wyden's leadership on some of the clean fuels work or Senator Cantwell's leadership on the Commerce Committee, Senator Murray, who's been a longtime champion of Wazoo and their research capabilities. We've got federal partners that want this to advance. I think we need to engage them more and also show what we've been building so that we can catalyze more of that partnership across time.
Diana, airlines serve as probably the most critical component of the entire SAF value chain. And as you hear Senator Liias describe some of the policies in the state, from the airline's perspective, do these policies actually help change the math on SAF purchasing decisions? And what's still missing? Or what would help close the remaining green premium gap?
Well, they do make a difference, and tax incentives are an important part of the picture. I think of them as part of the kickstart for the industry. We're still at a startup phase, and we need kickstart support.
Mhm.
Ultimately, SAF must be cost competitive with conventional fuel in order for it to sustain. Fuel is more than a third of our overall cost structure. And with fuel prices up today, we see the real financial challenge that elevated prices create. And so we need to make sure that we are kickstarting the market so that the technologies that are available today can scale and achieve a cost down curve. We need to select new technologies where the inputs and the technology process can scale and have cost competitive SAF. We need to level the playing field between the incentive to produce renewable diesel and the incentive to produce SAF. So the producers are inclined to produce SAF and bring that to market. And then we also need partners who have a desire to mitigate the scope 3 cost of their corporate travel and are
Mhm.
willing to help fund the acceleration of SAF, especially at this startup phase, to reduce the green premium and enable SAF to be purchased on a more regular basis as we get it scaled up and get new technologies going. So it's going to take all parts of that, but the financial challenge and closing that gap between the cost of SAF today and the ability to be cost competitive is a really critical piece, and policy plays a key role.
Yeah, and it's such a unique focus area for the Cascadia effort of the work that Senator Lias is doing to bring policy and incentives to the market today to address the green premium of today. And then the work that Alaska and other coalition partners with the research institutions to focus on those long-term technology pathways that do help bring down the long-term cost of SAF production. It's keeping our eye on the prize today, but also recognizing that long-term we have to have a multitude of solutions to the green premium.
Yeah, it's why we started this new investment fund with Breakthrough Energy and One World, actually, to identify those technologies that can scale and be cost competitive. And it's exciting to think about how something like Cascadia can help those technologies advance.
Yeah. Diana, 10 years from now, what does success look like for Hawaiian and Alaska and your passengers flying from SeaTac to Honolulu and back and forth? What changes and what does the flying public actually notice in 2036?
Well, I think success looks like having a steady, cost competitive, reliable supply of fuel and different types of fuel, including sustainable aviation fuel, and not just in the Pacific Northwest or in the Cascadia region, but globally. We want to make sure that we can uplift SAF in Japan or in London or in Rome or the various other places that we fly around the world. I think the other success is if we've created new economic opportunity for communities where these technologies are going to develop and where this fuel is going to be produced, new jobs, new industry in places that will benefit from that. For the traveling public, in some ways, it's a success if they don't see anything. I mean, SAF is a safe, seamless drop-in fuel. And so if we've been successful, it's just in the fueling infrastructure. It's not trucked in. It's not different hoses. It's not any operational complexity. It's just part of the fueling ecosystem. But customers will recognize that their travel footprint is more environmentally sustainable. And hopefully it means that the industry as a whole is thriving for a long time to come to continue to support jobs in our communities.
Well, for Senator Liias, it ties in directly to your original vision for a lot of the work of Cascade. What does success look like for Washington 10 years from now? Jobs, airport adjacent communities, energy security, the state's climate goals. You've listed off Cascadia, and the SAF transition represents such a unique win-win-win for so many different sectors. What's the legacy you want this coalition to leave?
Yeah, I mean, I think for different Washingtonians, success looks different. I grew up just adjacent to Payne Field in one of the communities that bears a little bit of the brunt of some of the air quality impacts of our airports. So if you're living near SeaTac or you're living near Spokane International Airport, it's cleaner air, it's less asthma, it's less heart disease for folks because you see less emissions, less dangerous emissions coming from our aircraft because SAF is cleaner burning and it's more sustainable. If you're in the Tri-Cities, it means the hundreds of jobs at the Sky Energy facility that will be online. So creating opportunity in the rural parts of our state to participate in our aviation industry. From an energy security perspective, we know that producing SAF brings with it the opportunity to produce other clean fuels and clean products. And I imagine a day when our clean refineries are producing clean diesel for our state ferry fleet and clean jet fuel for the planes that leave our airports. And you begin to see the synergies of that. And overall, all of this contributes to what our vision is in Washington, which is more jobs, more prosperity with less emissions. And we've shown over the last 10 years that we can separate the two. We don't have to degrade the future of the planet for our kids and our grandkids in order to have prosperity today. We can have both a sustainable future and jobs today. And I think in 10 years, the SAF story, as we reach that billion-gallon goal and blow through it, is going to really tell this story that we can have jobs, we can have prosperity, we will have a healthy and strong aerospace industry, we will have the biggest and best airline in America, Alaska Hawaiian here, and at the same time, we will be reducing emissions, breathing cleaner air, and can be proud that we are leading the way, not just in the US, but globally. That's the other success measure for me is, and we're already seeing this, if you've got a SAF innovation, there's already momentum to come here to Cascadia and try and prove that it works and come and show that product. We're seeing producers from all over the world as they come to North America, putting us on the map. I want that to be the case in 10 years, that when you come to North America, you've got to come to Cascadia if you've got a new SAF technology, because that's the place to grow.
Couldn't agree more. And frankly, I can't think of two better leaders to help deliver on those visions than the two of you. So really can't thank you enough for the hard work and the foundation that you've helped build over the last couple of years. Well, frankly, the last couple of decades in this space. That's all we have time for today, unfortunately. But Diana, Senator Liias, thank you so much for joining really appreciate your leadership and your contribution to launching, frankly, one of the most advanced and comprehensive regional SAF coalitions in the world.
It's great to be here.
Thanks for having us, Jake.
Well, thanks to everyone in the audience for tuning in. For more information on the Cascadia Accelerator, Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines work on SAF, and some of the policies that Senator Liias mentioned, check out the links in the description of this episode. If you have any questions about Cascadia or SAF more broadly, feel free to reach out to me directly at jake@earthfinance.com. Thank you all.